because what did I tell you? What did I tell you? I'm like convinced, and Nico just said this to me, that I bring the cold whenever I come here. I also
Just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Babe, what business do you mean? There's no doubt she hammered the final nails into this movie's coffin, maybe 2 or 3 of them herself. Look right there, zoom in, that's it. A 163,000 rating, scoring just 1. 6? Not out of 5. Rachel Zegler is in full panic mode after ticket prices for her show reportedly dropped to $0, all because of the backlash she stirred by trashing Disney's Snow White. Seriously, who does she think she is? For a long time, it's felt like no one has drawn the public's ire quite like Rachel Zegler. The damage is done, and now it's clear studios won't touch her for future projects. Hollywood didn't cancel her. She canceled herself. I love you so much, she says, pretending for fans who stop her for photos while waiting in line for the Snow White ride. The irony writes itself. So let's get this straight. Rachel Zegler went from being Steven Spielberg's chosen one to starring in a show where tickets are literally free, $0. You can watch her perform for the same price as breathing air. And this wasn't some random accident. It was a slow-motion, self-inflicted career meltdown. At this point, she's become the poster child for how to burn through Hollywood goodwill. What makes it fascinating is how satisfying her downfall has been for so many onlookers. Let's rewind to 2020. Back when Hollywood couldn't stop praising her, Spielberg handpicked her from over 30,000 auditions for West Side Story. Critics called her a prodigy, a once-in-a-generation talent. And maybe she was, for about 5 minutes. She even snagged a Golden Globe at just 20. It looked like she had everything: talent, hype, and Spielberg's blessing. Then Disney handed her Snow White with one warning: don't mess it up. Fast forward to now. Snow White bombed at the box office twice. You've heard of a flop, but 2 in 2 months? That's historic. In just 3 years, she went from Disney royalty to Broadway charity pricing. Imagine being so unlikable that your show has to switch to pay what you want. That's not art, that's desperation. It's like watching someone try to cook a steak and accidentally burn down the kitchen. But before we even blame Snow White, let's rewind to where the cracks began: West Side Story. Critics adored it, but audiences didn't show up. It barely pulled in $76 million worldwide on a budget of over $100 million. That wasn't underperformance. That was a full-blown financial disaster dressed up as a strategic phase plan. And let's be honest, it's hard to feel sympathy when she's spent years making woke comments about her new Snow White role. Did Rachel take the flop with grace? Of course not. Instead, she blamed white audiences for the movie's failure, because apparently, it couldn't possibly be that people were just tired of another forced, politically charged remake. Nope. According to her, it was racial privilege. Her words, not mine. And for the life of me, I still can't figure out why she insists on pronouncing Spanish words with a heavy accent, in a language she doesn't even speak. Puerto Ricans, Maria, Latino, Latina. She says them like she's performing for a telenovela casting call. Even actual Latino fans were like, please, stop. It came off as fake, performative, and painfully awkward. In one interview, she even described the Sharks, the rival gang in West Side Story, as a rainbow of the Latino community, before awkwardly struggling to explain what that actually meant. And then there were the interviews. Rachel seemed to think every press tour was her personal TED Talk. She analyzed West Side Story like it was a master's thesis on post-colonial identity, completely forgetting that it's basically Romeo and Juliet, with dance battles. Someone really should have told her that. Then came her comments about Snow White. You know, the original came out in 1937, she said. There's this big focus on her love story, with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. At that point, it was clear. She wasn't just promoting a movie. She was trying to rewrite it, lecture everyone about it, and alienate the audience at the same time. But West Side Story was just the warm-up act, the opening number before the real show. Rachel Zegler's full-blown, kamikaze-style self-destruction of Disney's Snow White. And honestly, where do we even begin with this one? Instead of promoting the movie like a seasoned professional, Rachel marched into interviews with the unfiltered enthusiasm of a college freshman who just finished their first gender studies class and couldn't wait to educate everyone around them. Every promo appearance turned into a lecture. Every red carpet question became a soapbox moment. She didn't just talk about the movie. She dissected it like it was some socio-political experiment. She called the original 1937 Snow White outdated, tone-deaf, and even weird. According to her, the prince, the guy who literally risked everything to save a poisoned princess, was a stalker. That's right, a stalker. The man who kissed Snow White to break a curse and save her life, suddenly rebranded as a problematic creep. And she said it with such confidence, as if rewriting Disney history was part of her contract. Before long, criticizing the very films she was hired to represent became her signature move. She said proudly, "This Snow White doesn't dream of true love. She dreams of leadership." Because, apparently, what every 6-year-old girl wants from her favorite fairy tale is corporate ambition and a lesson in executive management. Forget romance, charm, or wonder. This new version was all about career goals, motivational quotes, and leadership seminars. It's like Disney tried to make The Apprentice fairy tale edition. Instead of singing to birds and talking to animals, she's out here manifesting a corner office and quarterly growth targets. Magical, right? In another clip, she elaborated, she's not dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader her late father told her she could be. Fearless, fair, brave, and true. Inspirational, sure. But maybe not exactly what parents or kids expected when they bought a ticket for Snow White. At times, it almost felt like Rachel forgot she was acting in a fantasy film and thought she was delivering a keynote speech at a corporate women's summit. And then came the fallout, a full-scale PR meltdown. Disney fan forums were in chaos. Reddit threads lit up overnight with titles like, "Rachel Zegler is destroying Disney with her mouth." Clips from her interviews went viral for all the wrong reasons. People weren't talking about the movie anymore. They were talking about how unlikable its star had become. Even Disney themselves started to panic behind the scenes. Merchandising deals suddenly went quiet. Movie promotions were mysteriously scaled back, and the film's release was quietly delayed. Fans started joking that Disney had entered Phase 1 of the Rachel Erasure program. When the studio that literally made you a princess starts acting like you don't exist, that's not a coincidence. That's damage control. But Rachel wasn't done. Not even close. She took the chaos up another notch by diving straight into politics. Back in 2020, she'd already alienated half the country with one simple post. On Instagram, she wrote, "F Donald Trump, may Trump supporters never know peace." Yep, that was real. Not a parody, not a screenshot from some anonymous account. Those were her actual words. And this wasn't just bad optics. It was catastrophic branding. She wasn't just losing moviegoers, she was losing millions of potential fans. And remember, this is Disney, the company that markets itself as the home of comfort, nostalgia, and family-friendly joy. The same brand whose main audience is suburban parents planning their next trip to Disneyland. And here's their newest princess, online, essentially hexing half of their customer base like Regina George in a political meltdown. Commentators called her out immediately. Some said she'd been brainwashed by Hollywood's echo chambers. Others said she was trying too hard to appear woke and morally superior. But either way, the result was the same. She came across as arrogant, angry, and completely out of touch. Still, instead of taking a break, she doubled down, especially on TikTok. Suddenly, she was posting political takes like an influencer desperate for validation. At one point, she flat out said, "Vote Kamala Harris. It's non-negotiable." It was like watching someone actively campaign for the title of Most Unhinged Celebrity Online. By that point, Rachel Zegler wasn't just having a bad press tour. She was living through one of the most impressive PR self-implosions in modern Hollywood, a full masterclass in how to alienate your audience, ruin a multi-million-dollar partnership, and torch your once promising career, all without anyone else's help. She once said, "If you disagree, I don't need your business." Really? You don't need their business? Are you sure about that, Rachel? Because your box office numbers seem to tell a very different story. The ticket sales definitely disagree. You might want to reconsider that attitude, because in Hollywood, audience business is the only thing keeping the lights on. And while she was out there throwing verbal grenades at half the country, the man she was raging about had already survived multiple assassination attempts. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to tone down the rhetoric. Then came the backlash. After her comments went viral, Rachel tried to walk them back. "I apologize," she said. "I went too far." But by then, the damage was already done. The internet doesn't forgive easily. And it definitely doesn't forget. And sure enough, her comments exploded online. But not in the "wow, she's so brave" kind of way. More like, wait, did she actually just say that? Even people who typically agreed with her politically were giving her the side eye. Because there's a massive difference between having an opinion and launching a full-scale verbal war on your own audience. Meanwhile, Disney said absolutely nothing. Not a word. But anyone who understands PR knows silence isn't accidental. It's strategic. Behind the scenes, that kind of quiet means one thing. They're working overtime to make the problem disappear without fanning the flames. And slowly but surely, Rachel's presence started to vanish from Disney's promotional world. Ads, merch, interviews, gone, fading faster than a discontinued cereal box on clearance. And the wildest part? She didn't even need help to destroy her own career. There was no scandal, no leaked video, no conspiracy. Just her, a microphone, and an endless supply of bad decisions. This wasn't Hollywood turning against her. It was Rachel Zegler handing Hollywood the scissors and saying, "Here, cut me out." Her career went from being Spielberg's golden girl to Broadway's bargain bin in record time. She had the crown, she had the blessing of Disney and Spielberg, and somehow she threw it all away. She tossed it straight into the dumpster herself, and still managed to act like the victim of some invisible smear campaign. To be fair, some people tried to defend her. They said her comments came from a place of youthful arrogance and political passion. Maybe that's true. Growing up in such a polarized, performative era of social media probably made her believe that outrage equals authenticity. But Hollywood doesn't care about passion. It cares about profit. And her words were bad for business. So what did Rachel do after all that? She tried to hit the reset button. Her big idea to rebuild her image? Return to the stage. Bold move. You've just torched Disney, alienated half the country, and treated press interviews like political rallies. And your next step is Broadway? Really? She looked at the smoldering ruins of her movie career and said, "You know what? Let's take this chaos live!" Because nothing says fresh start quite like bringing your Hollywood drama to the theater. Front row seats included. Theater. Front row seats included.
My body, and I'm so psyched.
Good morning, besties. So I already didn't vlog.
Rachel Zegler once said, "I never wanted it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I've had. I can be having the greatest time and still wish people would stop sending me death threats." And you know what? Fair enough. Fame is messy. The internet can be brutal. But even with that context, what came next was pure spectacle. Because after all the controversy, the backlash, and the Snow White implosion, Rachel Zegler somehow landed the iconic role of Eva Peron in Evita at the legendary London Palladium, a role previously owned by Broadway royalty like Patti LuPone and Madonna. The buzz was electric. People were curious. Could Rachel pull off a redemption arc? Could she silence the critics and finally prove she belonged on that stage? At first, it looked promising. Headlines called it her comeback. Theater fans buzzed. Tickets were selling for $500 each. $500. For that price, you'd expect nothing short of magic. A voice that shakes the rafters, a performance so powerful it leaves the audience in tears. You wanted to witness the moment. "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," echoing through the Palladium like Broadway history reborn. But what people got instead was something no one could have predicted. Picture this. You've paid $500,000, dressed up for the night, and taken your seat in one of the most prestigious theaters in London. The orchestra swells, the lights dim, and everyone waits for Rachel's big number. The moment arrives. "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina!" Only she's not on stage. She's outside. That's right. Rachel Zegler literally walks out onto a balcony and starts singing to the crowd on the street. Fans who didn't even have tickets are now getting a front row experience. For free. Meanwhile, the paying audience inside, they're staring at a TV screen, watching their $500 live show like it's a grainy live stream from 2003. Social media exploded instantly. Memes flooded the internet. One viral post said it best. Paid $500 to watch Rachel Zegler through a monitor. Peak Broadway scam. People felt cheated, like they'd been pranked. Nobody paid theater prices to attend a TikTok experiment. And the irony? Rachel wasn't even bad. Critics admitted she sounded great, solid vocals, strong stage presence, confidence that filled the room. But it didn't matter. Because in that moment, the performance stopped being about talent and started being about her decisions. The show felt like a social experiment gone wrong. Self-indulgent, confusing, and most importantly, disrespectful to the people who actually paid to be there. Then came the free fall. Ticket prices plummeted faster than a failed stock IPO, from $500 a seat to pay what you want. Some nights, it was literally free, as in, toss a coin if you feel like it. Theaters that once bragged about being sold out were suddenly handing out tickets like coupons at a grocery store. Critics called it performance art meets public meltdown. Fans called it a scam. And industry insiders? They called it the final nail in Rachel Zegler's PR coffin. In just a few weeks, Evita went from being her grand redemption story to a full-blown cautionary tale. The buzz turned into laughter. The laughter turned into silence. And that's the tragedy of it all, because Rachel actually had the talent. She could sing, she could act, but the choices, the interviews, the arrogance, the stunts, they buried the ability underneath a mountain of bad press. From $500 a seat to free if you want it, that's not a rebrand. That's not growth. That's a public relations obituary written and directed by Rachel Zegler herself. The original Snow White cartoon was created nearly 85 years ago, which means that by today's standards, many of its themes about women and power feel undeniably outdated. But the real drama didn't end with Evita. It actually spilled right into Snow White. Reports began surfacing that Disney had allegedly started to edit Rachel Zegler out of her own movie. Just imagine that. You're the lead actress, the literal face of one of Disney's most iconic fairy tales, and yet the studio quietly starts cutting your screen time as if you're just another background extra. It didn't stop there either. Her face began disappearing from promotional materials, posters, merchandise, and even retail store displays. It was as if Disney had decided she never existed. That's not damage control. That's a full-on exile from your own film. Before this, Rachel had described her version of Maria as new and improved, a more multi-dimensional woman compared to the classic portrayals by Carol Lawrence or Natalie Wood. But that sense of creative direction seemed to cause more tension than innovation. In fact, the Evita producers later confessed they regretted casting her, admitting they had to completely reshape their vision for the show just to accommodate Rachel's input. That's basically Hollywood code for, she took over the project and made it worse. What should have been two career-defining opportunities instead became two giant stress bombs for everyone involved. And unfortunately, the chaos didn't stay behind the curtain. Offstage, Rachel's public image began to unravel at lightning speed. One of her most infamous moments happened during her appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, when she recounted a story about a man who sang the line Maria from West Side Story to her as she was leaving the bathroom at a Chili's. Instead of laughing it off, Rachel told Kimmel that the interaction ruined her night and that she immediately left the restaurant. Seriously? If a random fan singing a line from your movie in a Chili's bathroom is enough to throw you off, how exactly do you survive in Hollywood, where criticism rains down daily? She followed that up with more puzzling comments about the Snow White production, saying how much she loved working with the team, which sounded sincere, but then adding that she wasn't promoting the movie just to win awards. That kind of statement came across strangely defensive and almost self-sabotaging, as if she couldn't help but undercut her own excitement. Then, when she confessed she pretended to like fans at Disneyland who asked for photos, people's jaws dropped. That's not just a PR blunder, that's alienating your entire base. I mean, what kind of Disney princess openly mocks her own supporters for being excited to meet her? Even when she tried to lean on humor, it didn't land. Her jokes came across more icy than witty, more dismissive than clever. It all painted the picture of a young actress spiraling through fame, alienating fans, and pushing away the very people who once rooted for her. What could have been a graceful rise to superstardom instead became a slow-motion PR collapse, and every new appearance only seemed to dig the hole deeper. One critic described Rachel's delivery as off-putting. Another said she sounded entitled, which, if we're being honest, might actually be the most generous description of her entire public image. Snow White turned out to be the perfect storm of what people now call the go woke, go broke phenomenon. Disney poured millions into it, but the movie ended up pulling less than $1 million in China. That's not underperformance, and that's a cinematic collapse, and audiences felt it. They didn't boycott the film out of anger. They simply checked out. They were tired. Tired of being talked down to, tired of the constant lecturing, tired of watching someone who seemed embarrassed by the very role she was paid to bring to life. Fans began asking the obvious question, if she doesn't even like playing Snow White, why is she doing it? Because when your job is to sell fantasy and all you do is complain about the story, mock the material, and act like you're above it all, people just stop showing up. As her fame grew, her interviews only got stranger. Awkward pauses, defensive tone, and an energy that screamed, "I'd rather be anywhere else." Each new appearance felt like watching a slow-motion train wreck in designer clothing. And then came the tears. Literal tears. Rachel broke down crying during a standing ovation at one of her Evita shows. Normally, that would be a touching moment. A young actress overwhelmed by emotion. But instead of admiration, the internet gave her a collective side-eye. Viewers didn't buy it. Comment sections exploded with skepticism. "She's acting again," one wrote. "This is PR damage control," another claimed. What could have been her triumphant redemption arc turned into yet another meme. Another reminder that no amount of tears could wash away months of condescension. Because here's the thing, Rachel Zegler isn't talentless. Far from it. She can sing beautifully. She can act. She has the kind of range most performers dream of. But talent was never the issue. The issue was everything else. Her attitude, her tone, her inability to just read the room. She managed to turn every stage into a soapbox, every interview into a lecture, and every fan interaction into an inconvenience. At one point, an interviewer asked her gently, "What would you say to those who are overly critiquing the film? You've worked so hard on it." Rachel smiled awkwardly, but the sincerity felt gone. It was like watching someone who had been given the keys to the kingdom and somehow locked herself out. And that's the tragedy of it all. We're not witnessing a victim of Hollywood politics or unfair press. We're watching someone who was handed every golden opportunity and fumbled it. One mic, one quote, one balcony stunt at a time. This wasn't sabotage from the outside. It was self-inflicted. A slow, deliberate act of career self-destruction disguised as confidence. Now, you'd expect that after all the chaos, the phone would still be ringing. Maybe Netflix calling with a comeback series or a director offering a fresh start. But no, the line's gone silent. Welcome to Hollywood jail. A place where you're not officially canceled, you're just forgotten. It's the industry's polite way of saying, we're not mad. We're just done. Rachel Zegler isn't blacklisted in some dramatic Hollywood exile kind of way. There's no public scandal splashed across headlines, no viral footage of her being chased out of restaurants, no screaming paparazzi scenes. Her downfall is quieter, colder, the kind that happens behind closed doors. The kind where studios just stop picking up the phone. That once rolling red carpet, it's been rolled up, stored away, and locked in the closet. When a reporter once asked her, "What made you want to step into the world of DC heroes?" she didn't smile or hype the project. She simply said, "I needed a job." Dead serious. That one line summed up everything people had started whispering, that the girl who once had Hollywood eating out of her hand had somehow become the industry's biggest gamble. Her name has become so risky that studios are now running something called A/B testing. Two versions of the same trailer, one with her name and one without. The results? The version without her name performs better. Imagine being so publicly disliked that your absence sells more tickets than your presence. She went from lead actress to maybe don't mention her in record time. And it's not because she lacks talent. Everyone agrees she can act, she can sing, she can perform. This isn't a skills problem, it's a personality problem. Directors don't want to deal with someone who brings chaos to the set, headaches to the marketing department, and social media controversy every time she opens her mouth. One filmmaker reportedly described her as a spark that ignites debates, not excitement. Translation, she's exhausting. In an industry where playing it safe is practically a religion, Rachel Zegler became the risk no one wanted to take. Even Disney, the same studio that once plastered her face on every poster and sold dolls in her image, has quietly joined the silent protest. Her Snow White version has been erased, literally. Try finding toys, posters, or store displays with her likeness. Disney stores have gone completely radio silent, like they hit undo on her entire existence. This isn't mere distancing, this is brand-level ghosting. When the House of Mouse stops backing you, you're not just out of the castle, you're in the moat. It's become obvious that, despite all the media training in the world, Rachel has a special talent for alienating her own audience. Every social media post, every interview, every offhand comment seems to push more people away. What was once viewed as confidence now reads as arrogance. What seemed outspoken now feels like provocation. And now, the only thing circulating about her career is a rumor that she might be cast as Maria in The Sound of Music. because apparently that's exactly what the internet was begging for. Rachel Zegler belting "The Hills Are Alive" with the same energy she used to call the prince a stalker. Before a single trailer or poster has dropped, fans are already groaning. The PR disaster hasn't even happened yet, and people are already bracing for impact. That's how far the reputation spiral has gone. It's not anticipation anymore, it's dread. What's wild is how entertaining her downfall has become to the public. Not because people enjoy cruelty, but because Rachel made it so easy. The arrogance, the finger-wagging, the endless tone-deaf interviews, it all became performance art and self-sabotage. Watching her is sabotage. Watching her is like watching someone step on a rake, then blame the ground. She's not the villain in a fairy tale. She's the cautionary tale. A walking, talking example of what happens when ego gets louder than empathy. Hollywood didn't betray her. The press didn't invent the backlash. The fans didn't suddenly turn cruel. Rachel did this herself. One smug interview, one politically explosive post, one offhand comment at a time. Once upon a time, she cried with joy seeing her name next to Snow White's logo. She said it made her emotional. But now, that same logo feels like a ghost of what could have been. A fairy tale turned footnote. And if you think this story is going to end in a Cinderella-style comeback, think again. Let's check the scoreboard. Discovered by Spielberg, lead in West Side Story, Golden Globe winner, handpicked by Disney to play Snow White. Then, in less than 3 years, she managed to alienate nearly every group that ever rooted for her. She mocked the movie that made her famous, insulted the fairy tale that inspired it, called her fictional prince a stalker, dismissed romantic love, mocked nostalgia, and turned press tours into battlefields. The results speak for themselves. Her shows flop, her movies get delayed. Her interviews go viral for all the wrong reasons. Her tears on stage are met with suspicion. Her name in a trailer is now treated like a marketing disease. There's no hashtag revival, no justice for Rachel campaign, just silence. And maybe that's the real tragedy. The one thing Rachel Zegler never mastered was silence. This wasn't a conspiracy. It wasn't cancel culture. It wasn't bad luck. This was self-destruction by microphone. A modern fairy tale rewritten as a warning. When pride speaks louder than grace, even princesses lose their crowns.